Every night at midnight, my uncle would show up at that park, and he showed up. His grades were really bad because he had hardly any sleep. And after close to about a year, the old man said to him, he goes, "From this point forward, you will never see me again. I have taught you everything that you need to know." And he left. My uncle returned to that park for 2 weeks in a row at midnight. Never saw that guy again. Now, he's learned everything, like philosophy and better martial arts. So now this gang from another part of Taiwan comes over to find him. And they were like, "Oh gosh," they're like, we're looking for this guy, he's the brawler guy." And they find my uncle. And it's about 25 of these guys come up to my uncle, and they're saying, "We want to fight you." And my uncle said, "I don't fight anymore." He's like, "What do you mean you don't fight anymore? We're gonna fight you, we're gonna beat you up." "Well, I'm not fighting." And he said, "Well, it doesn't matter if you don't fight, because you're in trouble." So my uncle stood there, and he told me the story. He said, he had his hands up, he goes, "I'm not gonna fight." And right when he said that, the closest guy to him hit him about 15 times in 2 seconds, and the guy falls down flat. At that point, the rest of the 25 guys, he goes, "Who will be next?" They all backed off. Because he said to me, he used psychology, he learned psychology from this guy. He says, when you're outnumbered by great numbers like that, if you're able to take out the first guy and put him on the floor unconscious, then everyone else will start thinking, that could be me. If he was to hit that guy on the chin and knock him back and he's still on his feet, they all would have rushed him. So using psychology and his martial arts, he took that guy out. Years later, when he was a young cadet, he got chosen by, the US had this young officer training thing where they would go to each Asian country and pick one person from the Army, one from the Navy, and it just happened that for Taiwan that year, it was the Army young officers. So my uncle was the highest, the most commendated young officer. He got to come to the US. So we came to the US for training, and they took him on a sightseeing tour of Washington, D.C. So they're on a little tour bus, and they're driving through D.C., and they get off at one stop, and when they get back on, everyone's got their stuff on the bus in their seats. These two big, burly Canadian officers see a seat that they like, and they sit down in it. This seat belongs to the young Vietnamese officer. And the Vietnamese comes on, and he goes, "That's my seat." They go, "Really? We don't see your name on it. It's our seat." So they basically bullied him out of there. My uncle was watching this in the back of the bus going, "That's wrong." They get off at the next tourist stop, and he makes sure that he's the first one back on that bus. He sits down in the seats the Canadians take. They get back on, they're like, "Hey, that's our seat." And my uncle looks at them and says, "I don't see your name on it." At which point they go, "You're a wise guy, aren't you?" And he goes, "Okay, let's take this outside. Let's take this outside right now." And it was two guys. One guy that was like 6'2", another guy that was 6'6". The 6'2" guy was talking smack to my uncle. And he goes, "Let's take this outside." And my uncle said, "Fine." My uncle starts walking out to the bus, and the 6'2" guy's following him. And he looks back, he goes, "Oh no, not you, both of you." And the minute he said that, they were like, "Oh. You can have that suit. We like this side anyway. We want to be able to see the monument and everything over there. Yeah, that's cool. Go over here." Crazy, Anyway, what's your questions? Wow, I digressed on that. Was that interesting at all? Or was that just ridiculous? Yes.
I gotta say, Garrett, that is so true. Grew up in New York with your Asian gang stories. I can so relate to it. That's the first thing.
Really?
So, a few comments. Number one, I didn't realize you were this funny. I mean, I really totally forgot my questions here. But first thing I just want to say, I really appreciate how you portrayed an Asian, especially on the show, and thank you for doing that. I just remember, when they were going to cast the show and they said there was going to be Asian American, I was like, oh my God, finally, one of us that's going to be shown in Middle America, that's going to break down all these stereotypes. I'm a physician and still in Georgia, and I get it all the time.
You're the stereotype, the Chinese doctor guy, right?
I'll tell you this really quick. Yeah, exactly. They're like, I remember, I'll just tell you the story really quick.
Yes.
I'll have patients and they'll go, "Well, where did you grow up?" And I'm like, "New York," and they go, "Wow, your English is so
good." Yeah.
I grew up the same place you did, so. I really, really appreciate your portrayal. My question is, Star Trek question.
Go ahead.
Was there any time doing the series that you wanted to do something with your character that you wanted to tell the writers to do, but you weren't able to do?
Oh yeah, oh please. But thank you for your comment about the Asian Americans. And to be honest with you guys, growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, as great as it was, there were definitely days, well let's be honest, every day of my life in Memphis, at least one person during the day would call me, would throw a racial epithet my way, every day. At the time, the only two Asians in the school were myself and my sister. That was it. And oh, Yang Yun, Korean guy, and his sister Sandy. So 4 of us in this whole high school were Asian. And I got it bad. I got picked on, but not as bad as the Hunan Garden restaurant owner's kid. Their family name was P-A-N, last name was Pan. They named their son Peter, okay? When I knew that, I'm like, okay, I thought I had it bad. Peter Pan's got it way worse off than I do, okay? I mean, walk through life as Peter Pan, that's not good, okay? Yes, so for me, when I got into acting, I was pre-med. I was pre-med at UCLA, so I was gonna be a doctor, just like you. I took a theater class and got hooked in it. And I started doing theater. My parents kept saying, you're not doing this as a profession. You're still gonna be a doctor. You're gonna do this acting thing part-time. I go, how is that gonna work? I'm in the middle of surgery. Boop, 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 bzz, bzz. Oh God, I got an audition. Okay, see you guys. You know, how's that gonna work? It's not gonna work. So basically, for me, I fought them for a long time. I said, you know what? I really wanna act. And they go, no, just do that as a hobby. So I just did theater, and I trained, I took acting classes for 5 years before I got an agent. And the thing with me, my motivation behind acting was to play a non-stereotypical character to the point that any people watching that show would get used to seeing an Asian face not delivering Chinese food, not doing the karate kick for you, not doing, you know, anything stereotypical. So my motivation was to play that non-stereotypical character so another kid, Asian kid or whoever in Memphis or Atlanta would not get picked on maybe, you know, because of my, yes, thank you. That was my goal. And the minute that I got that talent agent, it was a 1.5 years between that point and getting on Voyager. Voyager was my 32nd audition in my life, so it was very quick. And I think that that success came from the fact that I had been doing theater and training also for 5 years. But my motivation was to play a non-stereotypical character. It was not money, it was not fame, and the majority, let's face it, 99% of the people that are in Hollywood are trying to act for money and for fame. And I think when you have a little more of an honest or a different motivation, which isn't altruistic like that, it really changed the fact that, I mean, the amount of time it took for me to capture success, you know? But in terms of things that I've asked the writers to do that they didn't follow my lead, I would always say to them, I'd say, more comedy, please. More comedy. When we got cast on Voyager, we had a lunch with Rick Berman. Rick Berman took us all to lunch and he says, congratulations on all of you for being series regulars on the next Star Trek Voyager. I'd like to say one thing. For those of you playing human characters, I need you to downplay your role. I need you to act almost two-dimensional, very military-like, no emotion. The only reason, there should be no emotion whatsoever. It should be very, very underplayed. And we're like, why? He's like, well, because this is the only way to make the aliens look real. And I looked at him and I thought, that's BS. I mean, how many humans have the most emotion of all, right? And if you watch the first episode of Voyager, the first season of Voyager, there's very little emotion in the human characters. Janeway's very much of a tough, hard captain, okay? That whole first year, we did she did about 20 or 30 reshoots where they had to reshoot a scene because she had too much emotion in there. They had to redo it. I did maybe 1 or 2. And like I said, I wanted more comedy. I wanted more interaction between the characters and make it upbeat, you know, and also pacing. The pacing of the show I thought at times could be a little bit faster, but they never really listened to me. But then again, I wasn't the person who hounded them, because the more you hound somebody for something, then then the more chance they'll give in. And I told people the other day on the other panel I was at, Bob Picardo is the king of hounding, okay? He's like, hello, it's Bob. If it's possible, I think the doctor should sing opera. What do you think? Like that. And then they were like, yeah, it's a cool idea, but nah. Day 2. Hello, it's Bob again. Just saying if you could allow the doctor to sing opera. No. He kept doing this over and over. He called them twice a day for probably a year and a half, okay? Until they finally said, let him sing the opera.